So, hello and welcome to another episode of the Talking Balls podcast. The weekly snooker podcast comes out to you every Wednesday. And I'm Michael Wright, or Writer74 on Twitter. I'm your host. And just to my left as I look is our co-host. Over to you, Lee.
Hi, everyone. Lee here. Welcome aboard. Really looking forward to tonight's chat. We've got something a bit different tonight, Michael, haven't we?
Yeah, it's very different. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing where we go with this one. But we've got a comedian on. We've got a stand-up comedian and someone who certainly I've been kind of catching up with a lot of the reels there, and really interested to know more about the man behind it, the connection with the game, and some of your views really, Tom. So we've got Tom Mayhew on. So it's a big welcome, Tom.
Hello, thank you. I hope the views, you're not going to be asking too many probing questions, going for anything too controversial or anything too obscure, but I will try my best to provide.
Thank you, Tom. No, we don't do the Paxman thing or anything on here. It's all very very light and airy. In fact, if it gets too serious, I think I think there's a button on here you can press and it just diffuses the situation. It's all good.
All right, I'm hovering over it right now.
Tom, so I mean, I'm sure that people watching or listening will want to know more about your connections with snooker, or how far back your interest in it goes. And I guess it's as a fan of the sport that you almost have arrived to us today, really.
Yeah, well, I first kind of knew about cue sports generally because my dad would tell us growing up that he used to basically, when he was about 18, 19, 20, he would basically hustle people in pubs. He would, he'd play really badly at pool. He'd lose like 3 in a row. Then he'd go, I'll play you again for 20. And then he'd clean up, walk off with the money. They'd be shouting, swearing, trying to fight him, like as if, oh, you've cheated. He was like, no, I've just beat you. So that's basically how I first got heard about it, or first was introduced to it. Was basically my dad, proper working class man, going to a pub, hustling people, taking their money, making them look stupid.
Did you have a role in that, Tom? Did you have to kind of sit in the car ready to grab the stuff as he ran out? Or?
No, sadly, that was before I was born. He kind of cleaned up his act a bit, I think, after he had kids. He only does it once a year now.
So your dad must have been a bit of a player then, Tom.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. He wasn't that bad. I think he would have, very much come from that sort of generation of lads who would have spent a lot of time in pubs, playing darts, playing pool, and that was. Back then that was their Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like, they didn't really have, I guess, much else to do. They didn't have the same sort of television or streaming services that we have nowadays. He was born in the 60s, so they either you have one of these free channels, or you go out with your mates and have a laugh, have a drink, and play some pool and some darts. And he got quite good at it, and he actually made quite decent money, which is not too bad. I mean, you didn't make Ronnie O'Sullivan money, but
no,
it would pay for your night. Do you know what I mean? It'd pay for a few pints. So yeah, I think that wasn't too bad really. And then growing up, I used to watch a lot of snooker on telly. I remember the first kind of tournaments I probably would have watched would have been around the era of like Paul Hunter winning the Masters. I remember watching those, just being so exciting, because I think that period was when the only tournaments you'd get were the BBC tournaments on telly, and those particular tournaments and like those finals, the ones Paul won, they were all in deciders, and it was just like, God, this is the most exciting thing ever. Like you just presumed they were all like this because you were like every single time you're like, oh, this must happen every single week. There must always be deciders in major finals. And I just really got into it, and I really, really loved it since then. And I've kind of followed it I mean, I wouldn't say obsessively, but my girlfriend might disagree, but I follow it quite a lot nowadays, and I just love it. I just think it's such a great chill sport, and it's nice to have a sport where most of the players and most of the fans seem to be very down to earth, very kind of just normal people, which is, I think, when I grew up, I liked football and I liked snooker, and eventually you realise that footballers, they aren't like you. They don't do 9 to 5, so they don't struggle to pay bills. And then watch interviews with snooker players, and sometimes they're saying how, oh yeah, I had to win this match to stay on tour because I didn't know how I'm going to feed my family or whatever. And you're like, yeah, these are just like normal people. Like, it's one of very few sports, I think, in the world really, where there could be players in the top 128 who might be on 20 grand a year or something. So they're much more relatable because of that. They're much more down to earth. They're not all flat. I mean, some of them have got flashy cars higher up. Mark Williams has probably got a Jaguar or something. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But I always really appreciate the fact that it is more just more down to earth and more relatable, which is great.
It's funny you say that, Tom. I mean, when we had Neil, I try not to mention Neil Robertson in every podcast because Lee must get sick of this. There is a link though. The reason I say about it is because it was this thing about football. Because I'm a football fan too, but like you can see a big kind of distance to football, and it's hard to relate to it a lot of the time, especially top level. But he was talking about, when through the lockdown, when he had his hair, and everyone was saying, "What's going on with Neil Robertson's hair?" And it was all kind of quite unkempt and everything else. He said when he met with us, he said that it was because he was hearing of all the footballers who were breaking curfews and lockdowns by getting their hair done properly and looking the deal and all the branding and the image and all of that, and still getting all that done. And he said, and I wasn't going to do that. I just thought, actually, this is really wrong. We shouldn't be breaking the rules. We should be trying to show everybody as a role model that, which we're with you, we're like you. And so I let my hair go the way it will when it isn't getting treated properly. And that was what was behind his kind of wild barnet, apparently.
Oh, good on him. And I loved it. I loved his barnet, by the way. I thought it looked amazing. Like,
it looks like you're channeling a bit of Neil Robertson's barnet tonight, Tom.
I'm trying my best. That's the look I'm going for. That's literally the look. But I think genuinely since lockdown, I've started into a routine of literally going 6 months without a haircut and then getting it all chopped off, because I just did it like for the first time in lockdown. I was like, it's so much cheaper to do it this way, to just not worry about it and not bother about it. And luckily I do a job where I don't have to look particularly well kept or smart. If I was a snooker ref or something, I might get in trouble, but luckily there's no hair police in comedy, so it's all right.
Did you go through the whole girlfriend doing your hair for a bit as well, or give her a chance to try it?
No, I didn't. I think she would she didn't want to, because she was scared she was going to cause me an injury. So I went around to my dad and got him to do it instead, and he used the clippers to do it. And he just, it was like going to a very typical barbershop, whereas you go, I want my hair like this, and it's like, nope, just done. That's it. That's all you get in. So yeah, but it was free. You can't complain when it's free. So.
And you mentioned your job there, so obviously there is the snooker connection, which we're interested to learn more about in terms of your favourites and a bit more about your knowledge and all the rest without testing you. But
I'd love a test.
Oh well, there's a little quick fire one at the end, but I don't want to spoil it
amazing.
For you. But that's actually more about you and your thoughts about stuff rather than a multi-choice. Maybe we should get a multi-choice together one, Lee, so that we can develop that and do a mastermind or something. That would be cool.
Yeah, and then Tom should also zoom up for the Christmas quiz as well.
Yeah, you should check out the Christmas quiz. We got that one online. We had who was on there? We had quite a good group of people, didn't we? Joe Perry, Michael Hole, Lee. Lee was on there, wasn't he?
Lee Walker, Liam Davis.
Lee and Liam. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we had quite a good group, a lot of fans on there as well. We mixed it all up, and they joined us for about 2 hours in Christmas jumpers. It was brilliant.
Oh, I'm up for that, definitely.
That was really good. But you were talking about your job. So obviously, the parallel kind of part of the podcast here is learning about you and comedy. And would you take us back to the early days of thinking, hang on a minute, this might be something I could do? Or how did you find out that was something you wanted to do?
Well, it was the two, the three things, I suppose, in my life, actually, that I've always been really obsessed with since I was, like 10, 11, 12, were football, comedy, and snooker. And I wasn't very good at football, so that was straight away off the list. And I always thought I was always a bit short, so I thought, well, that's not going to help me playing snooker. And just at school, I just liked making my mates laugh. That's all I really cared about. I didn't really care about, and I did work hard, try and get GCSEs and A-levels and stuff, because I just, my parents didn't get them. So I was like, I'm going to work hard and try and get these. But at the same time, I just really hated the idea of a, you know, a typical nine to five. It wasn't what really sort of inspired me or what excited me. I was always like, right, I want to try and make that work, and at least try and make that work for, you know, 5 years, and then maybe see where I'm at after 5 years. And luckily after 5 years it was going all right, so I kept at it, and eventually get to a stage where you're like, okay, this is amazing. I can actually you know, earn a humble living from it, you know. I'm not a McIntyre or anything like that, but it's it's nice to be like, okay, cool, on this living I can probably be ranked about, I don't know, 84 in the snooker world rankings or something.
That's good.
You know? And who knows, maybe next week I'll win my first ranking title. We never know nowadays.
yeah, quite possible. Yeah, you just shoot right up there and get rid of some of the older you know, the older ones who've been around a while, you know. Yeah, it's a funny place to be, I guess, comedy, is it? Because I mean, me and Lee, I don't know who your favourite ones are. We're going to ask you about that, but I mean, we both quite like Ricky Gervais, don't we? He's one of the ones we talk about outside of here, which then makes you think about controversy, about, you know, this whole Jimmy Carr stuff at the moment. There's a thing, the whole cancel culture. It feels a little bit like, you know, comedy should be the place, shouldn't it, where you don't have to meter what you're saying or think about the right things to say and not to say. I mean, surely comedy is a bit where that's the release from all of that, isn't it? Or how do you think about it as a comic yourself?
No, I think it should be. You should be able to say, you know, whatever you want to do, and you should be able to make whatever comedy you like. I just think I mean, the Jimmy Carr one was very strange, because I think the special actually went out in about November, and then it was in February where people started going, this is really offensive. It's like, it's been out for, you know, 3 or 4 months. Like, regardless of what you think of the joke, if you've not seen the joke until now, then you're probably not the audience for it. So I felt it was a bit of you know, a bit of a kind of manufactured storm almost. I just felt like it was like, this isn't an actual issue, because it's not been an issue for 3 months. A bit like when, you know, in, I think it was 2008, when there was the Russell Brand Jonathan Ross thing. Where, I think like 3 people complained on the day, and then the Daily Mail reported about it, and then 20,000 people complained. Most of them didn't even listen to the show. The show wasn't for them. They would have complained just because they didn't like Russell Brand's hair. Like, it had nothing to do with the content of it. So I think you know, there's always things where people do like to jump on things and it snowballs. But I mean, generally, I would say to most people, if you go to a comedy club or a comedy gig, people do say whatever the fuck they want. They do. You know, I think people try and police what they say on TV or on radio, but go to a live gig, you can get mic, say whatever you like, and then by the time you've said it. No one can stop you from doing it. So I think live comedy is still in very good health. I think there's just always a few of these things where people get a bit angry or a bit carried away, but then Jimmy Carr will be absolutely fine. So, you know, at the end of the day, he's still going to be on telly, he's still doing all right. So yeah, I think it all just blows over, then people get back to their normal jobs.
And I mean, it's hard not to talk about COVID in a way. You know, we've talked to quite a number of players about how COVID affected them, and I guess it probably affected you as well, in terms of, you know, interrupting touring and making it harder for you to do what your day-to-day living is. I mean, I know, so I mean, I'm in Nottingham, so Nottingham was fairly well served, although it was all streaming anyway. But, you know, you kind of got the Darryl Martin Club down here with Just a Tonic, and a lot of working from home gigs with people kind of doing their comedy from home and then streaming it across. I think you probably did some of that as well, and you know, kind of thinking about how you kept going during that period.
Yeah, I did do some of that, but I'm not, well, I wasn't, and I'm probably still not at the level that I could make the same from streaming that I did from live gigs. So, you know, it was literally March 2020 I was like, right, okay, I've got to cancel my tour, I've got to go sign on, because I'd lost all my gigs, I had no work in, and I don't have the luxury of having, you know, rich parents who can lend me loads of money. I didn't want to just fleece off my girlfriend. That wouldn't be fair at all. So I was like, well, that's what I've got to do. And that was the situation we found ourselves in. Luckily, I'd say probably about now, it's just kind of come back to, I can make a living from comedy, you know, in in February of 22, the living is about the same as what it was in January 2020. But it's been a bit of a slog to get there. It's not been as quick as we'd all like, but hopefully now, I think people are getting back to normal. I think everyone is vaccinated who is wanting to go out and about. Anyone who can safely get it, they've all got it. So hopefully we're in the best place to, fingers crossed, be back gigging and everyone being safe and back having fun.
Yeah. And well, I often think with comedians how much of it with the act is a character act almost, and how much of it is the person. How close is it to the real person? But actually what you just said there about signing on, I mean, there's routines on YouTube and footage of you talking about signing on in job centres, and no doubt you might play around with it a little bit, but you're actually making comedy about what you're doing in reality as well then. So it doesn't look that different to you or yourself. You're not separating yourself as a separate character in that way.
No, I try and keep my stand-up pretty real and pretty sort of legit to what my life is. I kind of that's the kind of stuff I really like. I really like when comedians or musicians or whatever form of the arts do stuff that is inspired by their real day-to-day lives. I find that more interesting to me personally than the idea of playing a character. Like, I like watching other people play a character, but for me, I just think that I can't really do that. I just want to chat about my life and chat about when I worked at Sainsbury's, or when I was signing on, or when I was doing whatever I've been doing that week or that month. I just think for me that's it's just more me. That's just what I prefer, and some people won't like that, some people will. But I think when you work in the arts, you just got to do what you want to do.
So when you were younger, Tom, sort of getting into comedy and stuff, who was your inspiration? Who did you sort of look up to and get you into comedy, so to speak?
I really liked Richard Herring, if you know him.
Yeah.
I was a big fan of his stuff, and I liked the fact he did lots of stuff online. He did loads of podcasts. He was one of the first comedians to actually start podcasting properly, and I really sort of thought that was really cool to see someone work in that medium. So he was one of them. There are also people like Stuart Lee or John Richardson, but then also other people, I suppose, like Andy Zaltzman. I don't know if you know Andy Zaltzman. He's he does the Bugle, and he was on the News Quiz and stuff. I liked the fact he would just ramble on about cricket sometimes. I liked anyone who just does really sort of I think if anyone's got a unique voice, I think they're always the kind of people who I'm drawn to, because they're the ones who they tell a proper story about something that's real, and for me that's what I like.
Yeah.
And flipping over to the snooker, I mean, similar question really. What in the early days of you kind of getting into it, you mentioned Paul Hunter there and some of the finals you saw and that really impressed you. Are there players that you thought as you grew up, they're the favourites, they're the ones you really enjoy watching?
Paul Hunter was my favourite player, and there was also, obviously Ronnie, he was also up there. I always liked watching Graham Dott. I feel like he's a very underrated player. I like the fact he's not the flashiest. He's not going to make 10 centuries in a tournament, but he's very, very good at just fighting and grinding out a victory. And I always thought, I think some people do say that some players have underachieved or whatever, but I think maybe Dot possibly almost overachieved, because I think he was very, very talented, but to get to, did you get to 2 or 3 world finals? I can't remember.
He was in 3 world finals, yeah.
Yeah, and I just find that's incredible, really, because there's so few players have managed that, and I feel like he just did that through his kind of actual proper desire or just his mental strength. I think he's written before about his battles with depression and stuff, but clearly he's to overcome them and to also rise back to the top of snooker after them. He clearly has a very very strong head on his shoulders, and I always really admired that about Graham Dott.
Yeah, I always think with Graham Dott, it's just pure grit and determination. He's just pure granite. He's fantastic, and as you say, a lot of people in their eyes, he's an underrated player, but he's achieved so much.
No, I think he's very, very good actually, and I mean, it's one of those where if he wasn't in such a competitive era of the sport, he could easily have like at least 6 or 7 ranking titles. I think, you know, it's just that he came up when you had the class of '92, you had Hendry still about, you had, you know, Paul Hunter. He was in such a competitive era, but in any other era, you know, he could have easily been one of the names we'd be talking about right at the top. So
yeah, absolutely.
And we're recording this just after the Europeans, aren't we? The European Masters, and had a good run. I mean, I guess that's what's nice to see. You're still getting players who, not that you've forgotten about, but maybe they've had what you might think are the best days, and they're kind of going back up towards the latter stages of the tour, and then just one of them makes a run again, and it just says, you know what, on their day, if they put something together, you know, you never know who you're going to see in the latter stages. It's quite good fun, isn't it?
I think that's something that's quite magical about snooker, really. I don't think, I mean, maybe it might occasionally happen in a tennis or, you know, a dance or a similar kind of sport where it is a single player. But, you know, the fact that someone like Anthony Hamilton or, you know, Alan McManus, when they both made the Crucible that year, I just thought that was incredible. That like, literally, theoretically, any of the players from rank 17 to rank 1 to 8, or even amateurs, any of those players could qualify for the Crucible, and that's incredible, really. I don't think there's any other sport where it is that open and also that unpredictable, that's what you want from a sport. You don't want to be able to go, okay, I can call who's going to qualify, because none of us can. No one would be able to predict the 16 players who will qualify for the World Championships, because who would have thought James Cahill would get there, or, you know, any of the shocks or surprises, or, you know, I mean, Ding's going to have to qualify, and in my head I'm like, of course he will, but he might not, because he's fallen down massively, so there's every chance he won't, which, yeah, I can't call it.
Yeah, I mean, going sort of is such an unpredictable sport. We had a match today at the Welsh Open. We got Michael Judge, who was off the tour for 10 years, and he's now back on TV playing. So, you know, I don't think you get that in like say tennis or football. You know, somebody being out of the picture for 10 years and then turning pro again.
Yeah.
And having another run at it.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't happen anywhere. Or even I think a few years ago, who was it? David Lilly. He turned pro when he was in his 40s, and he turned pro for the first time. And I mean, that never happened in football. Like, oh, Chelsea bringing on this old man to play right back. It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah, the career's over by then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I really love the fact that it kind of, yeah, they might not be the players winning World Championship, but they still have their sort of moment in the sun on telly playing, which is, you know, what every snooker player would have dreamed of when they were 18, I'm sure. So it's nice they can still do that, even when they're in their 40s or 50s or even the 70s in the seniors tour and stuff like that. So, yeah.
You mentioned... Oh, go on, sorry.
Do you guys both play?
I play a bit, but Michael plays on the PS4.
That's the closest I get on PlayStation.
Michael's a professional on the PS4.
Oh, really?
Well, he isn't. How we met was a PlayStation League. That's how we knew about it, because met on the PlayStation Snooker League, the PS is it PS19, isn't it? I think Snooker 19, and we met in a league. So there's a group of people all from different walks of life, from different countries, all playing in these leagues, and we met on there. And it took until, I don't know, it was about a year or so ago, I don't know, a year or 18 months ago, when kind of started doing it. And it took us until just a month or two ago to play our first competitive match together on the PlayStation. And
wow.
Yeah, big needle, really. Friendly rivalry, but, you know, there was something on it.
Who won?
Well, I mean, it's not really about the winning, is it? It's about the enjoyment of the game. It's a pure sport. But Lee did get a 147 in the first frame.
Oh, well.
Which... Yeah,
round of applause for that, you know.
It's a lot easier on the PlayStation.
I mean,
that is hustling though. He's waited 3 years to play you, and he's like, "It's all right. I'll just take it easy, and I'll give you a chance." Yeah. Oh, look, 147. There we go, mate.
He needs to be put in his place. he gets all the glory by hosting this podcast. I'm only a co-host, so he had to be put in his place.
147. I was just watching you going, are you kidding me, right? What is this? Why are you doing this to me? We get on really well.
That could have been the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
You did let me have a frame, so my morale lifted considerably, even though I lost 3-1. But yeah, it was yeah. You're you're very good at the PlayStation one, but you're known as a good player in reality as well, aren't you? Don't be modest. You're Scottish Masters champion, weren't you?
Yeah. Back in 2017, I was Scottish Masters champion and number 1 in the rankings, amateur level. But that's only in my age group, which is 40 plus. It's a Masters. So yeah, I've dabbled.
Mate, take that. Absolutely, that's still good. You've still got that trophy in the cabinet, don't you? So
yeah, I mean, it's basically all snooker's pretty much always been my life. It's been a passion of mine since as far back as I can remember. So yeah, I just love it. Love competing. It's great. But what about your game, Tom? Are you much a player?
No, absolutely not. I'm more the. I've got my PS4 over there, so I'm very much more the PS4 player of snooker than a real Q, I'm afraid. Even then, I'm not going to play you because clearly you trash me straight away. You'd be like, "What's that? Best of 5? Oh, I've got 5 147s in a row. Sorry about that, mate." But yeah, I'm not a great player. But have you ever entered Q school or anything like that? Would you ever do that?
No. I sort of knew early on that I was sort of an amateur player. I wasn't destined for the pro ranks. I could tell early on, but I just loved playing and sort of to achieve the level I'm at the moment. I think that's as far as I could go. But I've had some good wins against professionals and good runs in tournaments and stuff. So I'll take that.
Who have you might have already said them in the podcast before, but
this is your podcast, Tom. This is your podcast.
I want to know who you've beat. This is interesting.
I beat Henry.
No.
It's on YouTube.
Twice,
yeah.
Mate, we got to get you into Q school this year. Let's start raising the funds. Let's do this.
I'll have Tom Mayhew as my sponsor. Yeah,
let's do it. Henry's he's a current tour player, and you've beat him, so
he's my hero. So I was shaking like a leaf when I played Henry, but it was such a great experience. It was just something I'll remember for the rest of my life.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and a few others. Michael Judge, who we spoke about, Barry Pinches, people like that. So yeah, I've had my moments, but that's amateur level. That's my level.
No, it's never too late to turn pro. You could be the Scottish David Lilly.
Well, Ian McCulloch told you off, didn't he? He told you that you were good enough and that you are good enough, and he gave you a telling off, didn't he? Really?
He did tell. Yeah, he did. That was nice coming from Ian because Ian's a fantastic player. But no, that was nice of him. Anyway, back to you, Tom.
All right, but I definitely will tweet you when Q School opens now, just to be like, "Hey, look at this, mate." It's.
Can we apply on your behalf? Can we kind of do an application form and just put your details in, and then you'll feel obliged morally to do it?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. That's simple then.
If somebody's paying,
that was really easy, wasn't it? Straight away, it was like, all right.
All right. Yeah. Well, keep your diary free for a couple of weeks around that time then, and you never know what might happen.
I'll do that.
It'll be like the X Factor when they're like, I didn't even want to audition, but my mum did it for me. And then they're the best one who ends up winning it, and it'll be like that. You'll be like, I didn't even want to enter, and suddenly, what's this? Playing at the Crucible? Here we go.
Yeah, then he'll be there, and he'll be saying, "Yeah, I will come onto your podcast, but I've got a royalty fee to come on." So
yeah,
for goodness sake. Oh dear. Well, that's on then, isn't it? It's on. We're committing it to video and audio. So Lee's going to play in Q School this year. That's the exclusive, and backed by myself and Tom Mayhew. So there we go. All good.
I shall get practicing.
Tom, you did mention a little while, you said about Ding Junhui, and we were talking about whether, you know, in terms of his position in the sport, the rankings and getting into the top group for the tour cards. But I mean, of course, we've gone now, haven't we, from a place where Ding was the man, and from a Chinese point of view, the big player, and almost setting the standards for the others coming through. We're just on the back again of another new kind of Chinese ranking tournament winner.
Yeah.
I mean, this season's really coming for them, isn't it, in terms of the talent coming through and getting past Ding where he is now.
Yeah, it's mad. I think I looked at the rankings earlier, and I mean, how, you know, for best part of 15 years he was China #1, and now, you know, he's below Bing Tao, he's below Zhao Xintong, I think he's below Fang Zhengyi now. I think he's below Zhao Yu. I think he was about 6th or 7th in terms of Chinese players, and that is crazy because this time last year he was clearly #1. He was much above them all. You know, it was boosted by the fact he won the UK Championship, but still, you felt like he was still, the #1 Chinese player. But now there's so many who've come through, and yeah, I feel like this could be the year where we finally see a Chinese world champion. I feel like really, I think if either Bing Tao can play like he did at the Masters, or Xintong can play like he did at the UK, I think they both should be very highly regarded for this year's championship.
Yeah, I think maybe just a matter of time, and it's sort of sad to see Ding, you know, where he is at the moment, and it looks to me like there's certainly a lack of motivation in Ding's corner, you know, and all the other Chinese players are just overtaking him. Such a change from just a couple of years ago.
I wonder, part of me hopes it may be maybe that will be the motivation for Ding to kind of really knuckle back down. And, you know, because we've seen it before with Mark Williams when he fell down quite a lot down below the top 16, and then of course came back and won the world championship. So hopefully this might be, whether it's the arm round the shoulder or the kick up the butt, whatever Ding needs, hopefully this will get him back up there, because he's still got the talent. On his day, if the qualifier is the best of 19s, I'd still fancy him against most players outside the top 16, because on his day, he's still knocking centuries. He just needs, you know, whether it's a bit of confidence, a bit of motivation, maybe a bit of luck, whatever it is. But I think he'll get back. I think he will. And I'm hoping it's soon rather than later.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's the academy, isn't it, in Sheffield, the Ding Academy, which and the Victoria Club. I mean, it seems like he's leaving a legacy there of bringing Chinese players over to kind of, you know, get used to working on in another part of the world to where they're from, and settling in England and building a career for themselves. So I guess whatever happens, in a sense, it feels as if he's like the big daddy, doesn't it? He's kind of the daddy, and he's seeing his younglings kind of getting in there and starting to kind of go past him in a way. I don't know if that's deliberate, that he was hoping that would happen, but, well, maybe he did, but not yet, because he's still, you know, he's not actually that old, really, is he?
Yeah, that's the mad thing. I think, what was he, 35 or something? He's still, you know, he's still
so young.
Yeah, I'm looking at Ronnie and Mark and Higgins. He could still have another at least 10 years in him at least. So yeah, it's crazy, really. I think he will get back up there, but yeah, who knows? Who is your guy favorite snooker player who's not been on this podcast? That's what I want to know.
Ooh, that's a good question, isn't it? Have you got one ready there, Lee? Is it Hendry for you?
Yeah, of course. There's only one Hendry.
Is that just so you can go, hey, Stephen, remember when I beat you twice? End of podcast, just walk off?
Not at all. Not at all. I've always been a huge Hendry fan. You know, people back in the day had pictures of naked ladies up on their wall. I had newspaper cuttings of Hendry on my wall.
Right, I think
as sad as that sounds.
I think he might never come on the podcast now.
That's blown that.
Oh, that's cool though. That's really nice though, that he was clearly your hero when you were a kid, and then you got to play him. That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Ronnie would be great to get on, only from the point that he's clearly in most people's eyes, the best player to ever pick up a cue, and that would be amazing. I don't know though. I think we've talked about this before, haven't we, Lee? That it would be brilliant, but you just wouldn't know what you were going to get. You'd have no idea what was going to happen, would you? And maybe that would be a good challenge. You know, do you fancy coming on? Do what you like, really?
Why not? Why not?
Is there someone you'd like to see, Tom, that you think would be cool to ask questions to and hear from in a more relaxed atmosphere like this?
I think, because what drew me to your podcast, actually, it wasn't the fact you had like Neil Robertson, because I feel like, you know, he'd be on all the big podcasts and all that anyway. I really liked the fact you had Clive Everton and Lee Snadden, because I was most podcasts, these people wouldn't get a look in, but I liked the fact you had those more kind of obscure names. Maybe not the names that get you a million downloads, but I liked the fact you celebrated, you know, the people who make up the tour. That's what I always really like about snooker. Like when I do play the snooker game on PS4, I like to use players who are the tiny names who no one else has used. So you go online, you're against like 5 million Ronnies, and then you're using someone like, you know, like one of your guests, Stephen Hallworth, someone like that. And I think those players are such an important part of the story of snooker, often overlooked. So I'd quite like you to get, you know, either, you know, just some sort of maybe someone like Darren. Is it Darren Morgan, the Welsh man? Is he called Darren Morgan or Darren Moore?
Darren Morgan, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
So Darren Moore's the West Brom manager, or former
he
manager.
was.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Darren, someone like Darren Morgan, or even JV, John Verker would be incredible. Do you know what I mean? I think, Dennis Taylor, those kind of people, because I think we've maybe not got long left to have, you know, proper in-depth chats with the likes of JV or Dennis before they either, you know, get too old or before they just get fed up of chatting about snooker. And,
that's right.
Yeah.
But it's true what you say, Tom. We've had a lot of sort of lesser known names on here, but they've been big parts of the snooker tour back in their day, and everybody's got their story, and it's a very interesting one. So it doesn't matter how big the name is; they've all got a story.
Yeah, I mean, we had Peter Devlin on, didn't we? I don't know if you look him up, Tom, but with his rapping, I mean, it's quite...
I think he's great. Yeah,
he's good,
I
isn't
really
he?
like him. I've got a lot of time for him, because I think he did a rap after the shootout once, and I saw some people being like, "Oh God," I'm like, "What? He's just having fun. He's just being interesting." I don't want everyone just to go like, "Yeah, it's a tough game. I'll play again next." I want someone who's a bit more interesting, a bit more fun, and he is that. He's a great character, you know. And I think he'd fit in well, you know, presenting snooker when he's not playing. He's that kind of person who I think he's got something different to offer the snooker community, doesn't he? So.
But that rap you're talking about, Tom, he done that completely off the top of his head, didn't he, Michael?
Yeah, he said that, didn't he? Yeah.
Just made it up on the spot.
You should get him to do one for your... have you got a theme tune for the podcast?
Some free music, royalty-free music at the start. That's about the best.
Get him to do one. Get him to do a Talking Balls rap, I think.
Yeah, I think he'd do that, wouldn't he? I'm sure he would, yeah. Oh, that would be nice. He was great. Actually, what surprised me about him was that he kind of comes across a bit of a lad, a bit of a geezer, you know, with the rapping and the videos and that. But actually, I would say he was one of the more serious people we've had on in terms of how he was on the one-to-one kind of, you know, that setting, and in a good way. But it was talking about, you know, the honest bit about how hard it is to make it in the sport when you're a young player and you're getting drawn against top players in the first rounds or even in qualifying, and you don't get any money really. So it was quite interesting to look at it from that point of view of, I'm called a pro, but I'm actually not really earning anything from snooker.
Yeah, well, I've always thought they should give everyone some money just for playing in the matches, because if you don't turn up for a qualifier, the qualifier won't take place. So you've got to go up and play, you know, sometimes play 7 or 9 frames. So that's you doing your job. That's you holding up the sport. Without you there, those qualifiers won't exist. So I think just, you know, give those players, even if it's 500 quid or £1,000 or you know, whatever, relative in snooker terms, is not much. And I just think it would look a lot better for the sport. You could say, oh, that guy at the bottom, he still gets 15 grand a year. Because at the moment, when there are cases where they go, oh, that guy at bottom, he's got 2 grand for the past 2 years. I just think that doesn't make the sport seem very professional to me. If, you know, players are struggling that much and are basically getting themselves in debt to be a professional. That makes no sense.
Yeah, and as you're saying, Tom, if you lose your first match, you don't get paid.
Yeah.
So, and the way the system is with flat draws, you could just have a series of horrendous draws, drawing maybe Higgins, Ronnie, and as a first-time professional, the likelihood is you're not going to beat those guys. So you're earning no money if you get a series of bad draws.
Yeah, and I just feel it doesn't, it doesn't encourage young players to come through, because where is the incentive? You say to someone, oh, you work for 6 years to get really good at snooker, and then you reach the level where you can then lose for 4 years and earn about $5,000. And then why would anyone do that? You have to keep betting on yourself to go, I can get higher and higher. But it's like, it's like with comedy, you do it for free for a long time before you eventually get paid.
Yeah.
But once you reach a certain level, then you still do free gigs here and there. But if you get offered a paid gig, you get paid for that, whether you do a good job or not, frankly. Like, they won't book you again if you do a bad job. But if I turn up and have an off day, I still get paid what I'm supposed to get paid. So, why can't a snooker player have a bad day and still at least get their travel or their accommodation or something covered? Because if you want to call it a professional tour, then all the players should be professional. They shouldn't be, players who are scraping by, having to work full-time jobs and then having to book time off work to travel and lose money playing a match. I think it's stupid.
And these guys that have got themselves through Q School or won an amateur event to gain the pro card, it seems unfair that they're not getting any money when they are professionals. They've made the grade to be a professional, and they're coming away with no money.
Yeah. Well, you see, you've got a conflict of interest now, Lee, because when you get through Q School, you're going to be one of these players. So, I can see where you're going here. You're kind of sorting it out for yourself, which
very clever, mate.
Hold Barry's listening.
So I mean, going back to there's comparisons with your career really, and with your love of snooker. Obviously with the snooker players, we talk to a lot of them who talk about their practice regimes, how they're at the halls every day, and how much they put into it. I mean, how do you go about it? If you're preparing for a show, or obviously Edinburgh coming up, and I've certainly seen gigs where there's comedians that we know of and we've seen on TV, and they're trying their material and they're telling you from the start that that's the purpose of the gig. How do you go about that? How do you build up into a few minutes of material? How do you craft it, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, well, there is a lot of that kind of, you spend a fair few hours at your laptop or on your notepad kind of thinking of ideas, jotting them down and working them up a bit. And then you do the thing of going to either new material nights or previews where you are trying out stuff for the first time, and because that's the only way you can really test it. It's not like other kind of like music. You might be able to record it in your bedroom and still get feedback, whereas really for something like comedy, you need the audience there, you need the reaction, so you need to test out brand new stuff even if you don't think it's going to work. So if you try and test it and hope there's bits of it that do work. So there's lots of hours that go in behind the scenes, and again, I think it's probably very similar to things like music or like sports, snooker, cricket, darts, whatever, in that people see people on telly and they think, oh, they've always been that good, whereas really all these things, they don't see these snooker players playing in the dingy clubs that they have to pay money to put the light on, and they have to or in the small clubs where they need to jack their queue up to fit it because the wall's in the way, or those kind of things. And they don't say the comedians doing the little rooms above pubs to 5 people, 2 of which who are drunk and think it's karaoke. So there's lots of kind of real scrapping to get by, and you have to put a lot of yourself into it before you get anything back. But that's, if you love it, then you're happy to do that. So
yeah, and I mean, I always admire stand-up comedians just to have the balls to stand up there and to know, it's the ultimate, isn't it, in terms of almost that performance related pay kind of thing. You'll get the laughs if it's good. and if it's bombs, then you kind of are going to have a night that you're going to find difficult, aren't you? I mean, how do you? Is that something that just comes with experience? You know, the way of dealing with a crowd reaction, or do you tend to just have confidence in your material, and it's just, you know, you can almost see what doesn't work if it doesn't, but you know you've got another zinger coming along the line?
I would say experience is the main thing, because you know you can only learn so much from watching stuff on telly or on YouTube or whatever. I think experience comes from playing loads of different types of rooms, different types of audiences, and learning what people can do to try and deal with different rooms, different audiences, different atmospheres, whatever it is. And you need to really kind of suck that all in, be like a bit of a sponge, and really take in everything that works well in that room, and then try and do it yourself when you're next in that situation. Although of course every audience is different, there's always a chance you can do, you know, 10,000 gigs and still have an audience who are like, bloody hell, who are these guys? I've never had anything like this before. So there's always that that possibility. But it's, you know, it's just experience. It's just being able to draw upon, okay, I've done a gig like this before and it went well, so I've just got to try and do that again. And also just being professional about it, just kind of, you know, not letting yourself think, oh yeah, it's easy peasy. Always, you know, treating it like a job. That's what you've got to do, because it is your job and people are paying to see you, so it's your job to make sure they have a good time, and if they don't, you do feel like you failed. So it's just yeah, taking it serious. And you could be, you know, messing around or silly or mucking about off stage or whatever, but on stage you've got to be like, no, this is the real stuff, we've got to do this. So.
And do you ever get nervous, Tom, or maybe that's the wrong word? Is it maybe trepidation how the gig's going to go, or are you nervous on stage? How does it go generally?
No, there can be trepidation, there can be nerves, like more so for if it's you know, an important gig, like if it is a radio recording, or if it was a corporate gig where you know, you're getting paid okay money, whatever. Like I've not done many of them, but whenever you do a gig like that, it's like there is more pressure on you, because you feel like you've got to nail it, because someone's hired you for this specific event, and it's not like a comedy club gig where there's going to be another act on straight away. If you're the only comedian there,
yeah,
like, this lives or dies on how well I do. So that does
pressure.
Yeah, it puts the pressure on. It makes you feel a bit more pressured, a bit more nervy. But then luckily, if you've got enough experience, you kind of know that you know how to deal with that pressure a bit more. And I think it's one of those things where usually you go on stage and within 2 minutes, like, all the nerves are gone either way. You know, you've resigned yourself to either, okay, this is going to be fun, let's do this, or okay, what am I going to do next? How am I going to save this? You kind of, you know, within 2 minutes, you kind of know how well it's going to go.
So it is possible to settle into the performance and sort of work off that, if you like.
Yeah. If you once you've got that experience, you do kind of, you know, you get that momentum, and that kind of carries you. And I think that's the same with a lot of things people do, whether it's you know, I kind of felt that a bit when I used to kind of play five-a-side football. You know, once you started playing a match, you do get that rhythm, and it carries on, and you don't even realize you've been running for 90 minutes. And I think comedy can be a bit like that. You kind of get in the rhythm, you know what you're doing, you just kind of spiral and snowball, and then you go, oh god, my time's up, okay, see you later. And you just get like that. And I think that's the sign that, you know, when you're doing, you know, when you first start, you never have that rhythm, because you're always worried about, oh god, what's my next bit? Oh no, what are they thinking? What are they looking at? What's happening? But once you get experience, you're just like, cool, it's fine, let's do this. Lovely.
And we talk about this, don't we, Michael, in the snooker, like how a snooker player mentally, how it's such a mental game, and in the seats sometimes they can destroy their match just from what they're thinking in their seat. I suppose that could sort of come into what you do as well, Tom. You know, if you're not mentally right on the night, it can maybe be a better struggle for you.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I think definitely. You know, the only example that would be similar to snooker in that sense would be like if you're MCing, so you MC at the start of the night, you bring another act on, and then you're sat down waiting to go back on. And if you're half an hour into a show and they're not really going for you, you might just think, all right, I can't be asked with this. I'm not going to do any more material. I'm just going to go, wasn't that person great? And here's the next person. It's Peter Ebdon. Just straight away bring someone else. I don't know why Peter Ebdon's doing stand-up all the time. But, you would just do that. You would go, right, I'm not going to do any material. I'm just going to go, oh, wasn't Peter Ebdon okay? Okay, here we go. Here's Jamie Clark. And then it all comes Jamie Clark in this weird stand-up snooker gig I'm hosting, which I would do, by the way, if anyone's listening and wants me to... I'm sure John Virgo has got some decent material, and Dennis Taylor. I'm sure they could headline it. But yeah, you do sometimes get into that and just feel like, right, we've got to plow through this, get it over. Because I think part of it is also, sometimes you kind of feel like you have to know when you're beat almost, and you almost feel like there's no point me putting in 90% of my energy if I know that the likelihood of it turning this round is not worth that energy or that time. And if the audience would have a better time watching another act, I'll bring another act on. Simple as that.
Stop digging.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's not about my ego. It's about the audience having a good night. So sometimes you have to go, that's fair enough. Let's bring on the next act and let's get a drink when it's over.
And do you have I don't know whether you prepare it or just go with it, but handling hecklers or handling the kind of guys at the front who are drunk and they're all in a party and they're being rowdy, do you kind of have any pre-prepared, if I get shouted at, these are the ways I'm dealing with it, I'm kind of prepared for this stuff?
Well, I don't really prepare stuff like that for heckles because you can never predict what they're going to say. But I do feel like, usually the thing is, like, I never drink before I do stand-up. I always keep myself fully sober. And then, so if there's someone drunk shouting at you, you're like, okay, I should always be above you. I'm always going to be ahead of you because you're someone who's 5 pints in, so I can always easily outsmart you and make you look silly, in the nicest possible way, as long as they're not aggressive. You can always just fairly often use what they say against you. Do you know what I mean? What against them?
Yeah.
You can throw it back at them and make them look silly, and then you chat to them, and if they're drunk, they're bound to say something silly or stupid, like literally a gig I did a couple of weeks ago, there was a guy called Bob and he was a builder, and I just started asking him
golden.
I started going, oh, every day you turn up, do you go, can we fix it? Yes we can. I was just started riffing about Bob the builder, and then chatting to his girlfriend and saying to her, like, how did you feel when he got that Christmas #1, and just literally riffing off that. I mean, often audience members just give you it and you're just like, okay, I know how to deal with this, let's run with it. So yeah, usually heckles are far less scary than people think. It's usually, most of the time, it's just someone who's a bit drunk and they want to join in. It's very rare is it someone who wants to attack you.
And there's quite a few links, isn't there, I think, between comedy and snooker. I mean, there's quite a few well-known comedians who have a love of snooker, and it's fairly, out there. I think John Richardson is known as a snooker fan. Do you ever listen to Richard Herring's podcast where he plays against himself at snooker?
Oh,
that one? Me versus me too, or something.
Yeah,
I think I listened to about 80 frames of it, and then I was like, "What the hell am I doing? Why?" I think it's kind of him going mad, and it kind of drove me mad listening to it but that shows how little kind of like snooker comedy there is out there, and that's the prime example that I can think of. Like, there was Big Break, and then there was Richard Herring playing himself at snooker. Like, there's so little things out there. So it's one of my little dreams that one day I'll write some sort of snooker sitcom, but that's probably a while in the future. That's not going to come out anytime soon, but I'd like to, because I feel like there's a rich tapestry of snooker silliness that we could all have a laugh at. And because I feel like it's him who likes, I know Mark Watson likes snooker as well.
Oh yeah.
There's a few people out there who like snooker, but it feels like there is a rich ground for more people to make comedy from it, because I mean, it's a very funny sport. Like, most people can just laugh at hearing people talking about their Q-tip or something. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah. And you spoke about Big Break there, Tom. Are you like me? You'd love to see it back?
Oh mate, I would. I mean, I'd love to host it. Literally, if they brought it back, I'd be straight on to my agent, be like, mate, can you at least get me an audition, or can I at least be a bloke in a corner, or help write on it? Like, genuinely, I don't know why it's not been at least brought back for a series or a trial, because so many of these things have been brought back and they've all done very well. You know, they've had what did they bring back? They had, what was the one with the boxes where the celebrities were sat in boxes?
It's not Celebrity Squares, not that one.
No, it's not a game
Take
show.
your pick.
Oh, no, was it Blockbusters? Is that what it's called?
Oh, Blockbusters.
Yeah, they brought that back on BBC One. You know, they've brought back different versions of Family Fortunes. They brought back all sorts of playing of cards, right? They had a few specials. So I'm always like, why have they not brought back Big Brett? I can only presume that maybe Jim Davison still has a contract and they don't want to work with him. That's all I can presume, because otherwise I'm like, well, why would you not make this? Because
well, the reason I asked that, Tom, is that it's supposed to be coming back.
No,
it was in the paper that it's possibly coming back.
Shut up.
So
is it April 1st? Are you kidding me?
No, seriously. Are you telling me that you've not had the email for hosting this?
Right. As soon as this is done, I'm going to be on to my agent, because Jesus Christ, like, this is like the best news I've had all week. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's supposed to be coming back. But my question is, if you're hosting, Tom, who's your JV?
Oh, I mean, I reckon Crafty Ken. I think he'd do a good job.
He'd be great.
I feel like I think in terms of people who are very good at bringing sort of a colour and a enthusiasm and, you know, a bit of humour to snooker. I think that there's Dennis Taylor and JV, but I think the heir to their throne is either Ken or Angles McManus. I think both of them are very, very good.
Yeah. And
you sound a bit like Angles McManus, actually. I think if I closed my eyes and you commentated, I would think he was commentating.
It's only because I'm Scottish. We all sound like this up here.
Well, if you want to do some sort of parody of him commentating, I'm sure you could do that.
Well, that could be the audition tape, couldn't it? You could have kind of Lee doing that part and you hosting it, Tom, and just say, look, stop the search here.
Can you just say bye Jingo, Lee?
Bye Jingo.
And just say bye Jingo. He says that while commentating.
Oh, bye Jingo. Is that good enough?
A bit more excited.
Bye Jingo.
There we go.
Oh, that's good. That is good.
Amazing.
That was only the second take.
We'll cut that from the podcast. We'll send it in with a big break audition. It'd be perfect.
Yeah, there's definitely strong rumours of it coming back, isn't there? It's maybe on one of the satellite channels or something.
About bloody time, frankly, if it does come back.
Yeah.
Because it's been too long. And I mean, it's definitely a market for it. I think, I think snooker's a lot bigger than the TV coverage kind of awards it, because I don't feel like there's enough on terrestrial TV. Like, even the World Championships, I think some of that they moved to red button, which I think is a bit sad that it's not. It's not even showing all of that. They'll show maybe Ronnie's match or maybe the semi-finals or the final, but in the first rounds, like last year, I had to go to the red button. I was like, this is stupid. It's the World Championship. Why would you not have that on BBC Two? Right? So I feel like maybe it'll be Sky, because Sky brought back Buzzcocks, didn't they? So maybe they'll be the ones bringing it back. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Sky used to have snooker on their channels, but then it just disappeared. Jeff Stelling was hosting the snooker on Sky Sports at one time.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was, back in the day when it was first on Sky Sports. It was Jeff Stelling, then it was Dave that done the darts. Dave, can't remember his second name, but he used to present the darts as well. Yeah, but it's only Eurosport really that do the snooker now. And obviously it's on Discovery Quest. Yeah, but I agree with you, Tom. It should be more on terrestrial TV, I think.
Well, I was excited because it's the Welsh Open at the moment, and that's always shown on BBC Wales, so you can find that on the BBC Sport website. And even that coverage, it's just nice. It's just nice to have that, to have Dominic Dale on commentary, to have a bit of there's something about the BBC presentation. Maybe it's just nostalgia, or maybe it's just
Mm.
the really sort of clear way they do it. But it always just makes you feel very, very comforting, very sort of at home with it. I don't think it can be beat, really, which is why it's a shame there's not more of it, I think.
It was nice, really, when they had was it the Championship League at the start of the season, and they had a lot of players coming in and into the commentary and doing, that was good. Kind of getting to know them a bit more.
Who was your least favourite?
Least favourite? Oh, I can't say really, can I? Because they'll never come on here. I don't know. I remember Peter. We were talking before this about Peter Lyons. I won't go any further. But we were talking about Peter Lyons, and he was brilliant, because I remember the one where, which player was it that did the Williams break, but he hit the black instead on the way? I can't remember which player it was. Do you remember?
No, I can't remember.
But Peter Lyons was in the commentary box and he was wetting himself. It was just brilliant.
I remember watching it and being like, "Who's this guy?" And then like, "Oh, it's Peter Lyons." I was like, "Yeah, he did a very good job. He was very, very good at it. He could have a future in the commentary box."
Yeah,
I'm not so sure about. But I love Stuart Bigham. His World Championship win was one of my favourite snooker moments the past 10 years. I thought it was beautiful. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he lends himself to commentary much. In the nicest, well, maybe he will with practice, but I did feel at that time he was just kind of. It almost felt like he was overthinking it, like he wasn't comfortable or confident. And maybe if you're out there, Stuart, and you want to come on the podcast and give your side of the debate,
Yeah, would be very welcome, wouldn't he? I think Joe Perry's very good. When I've heard Joe Perry on, I think he's definitely got a career in broadcasting coming up, without a doubt.
I think so. I mean, it's strange because I never would have thought Joe Perry would be good at it, and then he was. And it's kind of similar with Peter Lyons, and I don't really know what they've got, but they've got it. Do you know what I mean? For commentary, you can never quite know what formula it is or what it is, but you just listen to him and like, okay, no, they're good. They'd be good at this job.
Yeah, and I guess they're both very passionate and knowledgeable, aren't they? They kind of can lean on years of experience of knowing the game inside out, and I guess they give you insights, don't they, about shots people take on, which if you've not played to that level, you wouldn't really be able to talk about it in the same way. So that they seem just. But also they've got the voice, haven't they? I mean, not everyone's got the kind of voice and can use it in the way that would be appealing to listen to in that kind of setting.
Yeah, that's very true. And I mean, that's what I really love about, because occasionally you'll see people on like Snooker Reddit or on different forums and they moan about JV or Dennis Taylor or whatever. But I love them. I think they're brilliant. And I love the fact they have that history in the game, and they have stories that no one else can tell, and I think that's what's great, and that's why I think it's much better when a commentator is a former player, because there's someone like, there's other people like Rob Walker or Dave Hendon, and I think they're good at it. They're very good at saying what's happening and saying the shots, but it's something a bit more special when a player can talk about how they felt coming out at the Crucible, or how they felt when they first played this player in an exhibition or something. Like we can have Stephen Hendry going, "I remember when Lee beat me twice." He'd be able to say that on commentary as Lee's coming out of the Crucible. So
I think he's blanked out from his memory. Actually, I don't think he remembers.
I just had a text from him saying, "Where's the crowdfunding page to get Lee onto Q School?" So there's a turn up for the books.
It's not needed. Tom's paying my entry for Q School.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to set up a crowdfunding page for me to pay it, but okay, we'll sort this out. I'd love us to do that. That'd be amazing. How much is it? How much is Q School?
I think it's $1,000.
Oh, okay.
It's If
we start now, we've got time. I don't know what the closing date is, but if we've got a few months, we might be all right.
A few months.
Don't rule it out. That's all I'm saying. Don't give up.
Well, don't expect too much then, I would say.
Can't you just drop a text to your mate Neil Robertson and be like, "Hey Neil, can you lend $1,000 to help the dream come true?" and see what he says?
Or why don't you do the Dragon's Den thing and go, look, if you invest in me for £1,000 and I get onto the tour and I win some money, I'll give you your investment back. Can we do that? Maybe that's the way to do it.
It sounds too risky.
Well, it's not for you, really. You'll be all right.
No, yeah, you're fine.
I'll be fine.
Yeah.
There's no worries for you.
I think they've lost £1,000.
I don't know. We're not giving up on this idea. We'll sort it out after this anyway, off camera. We'll get the page up and running, GoFundMe or whatever the ones are, Just Giving or something.
Oh, well, you could do like a Talking Balls, like fly in the wall documentary of Lee's journey to Q School, and you can follow it and have chats with Lee as he's warming up and how he feels, and it'd be like a proper, you know, if he got on tour and you had a documentary of that'd be fascinating.
This is grown legs.
It's never been done before. That is a thing. Like,
there's a reason why.
I mean, no precedent. You know what I mean?
But to be fair, even if you don't make it, we could just say that this is about one man's journey to try to get through Q School. I know it doesn't sound so good, but it's still it's the story in there, isn't there? I got to Q School. You know, not everyone does that.
Yeah. Because I paid £1,000.
So yeah,
I got to Q School.
I got to Q School when I didn't even want to. I accidentally got to Q School because I was forced to on a podcast.
And then we could have like a live camera on you, so at times when you're just having a sandwich or something, you're not actually practicing. You can just keep prodding you and going, "Look, come on, you're not going to get through Q School like this, are you?"
I take it you're planning on editing this out, Michael.
Not really.
The last 10 minutes.
No, not really. No. No, we'll see where we go.